So maybe you're thinking about getting a dirt bike, but you don't know whether you want to get a gas bike or an e-moto like a Suron. So in this video I'll be giving you statistics so you can best decide what would be best for you. Let's start with speed, what a large majority of people care about most. So the bikes I'm going to use to compare here for the e-bikes are the Tudio, the Talaria XXX, and the Stark Varg. For gas I'm going to be using the Honda CRF 125, the Honda CRF 250, and the Honda CRF 450R. Obviously different brands will have different power levels, so what I say for the gas bikes won't be completely accurate for other brands. I just chose Honda because it's the brand I have the most experience with. Let's get to the top speeds. So for the Tudio, the top speed is only 37 miles an hour, which is completely dwarfed by the Honda 125, which can go around 50. The Talaria XXX has around the same top speed at around 50 miles an hour. However, it's simpler with it not having gears or a clutch to worry about. All you need to do is twist the throttle and go. Almost every e-bike has one gear, no shifting, except for the Alien Ride's Moto X, which has 4 gears, unlike most gas dirt bikes that have 5 or 6. For the Honda 250, it has a top speed of around 80 miles an hour, which is the max of pretty much every e-moto. And now the Honda 450, which has a top speed of 90 miles per hour, which is more than enough for any moto track or race. And then my personal favorite, the Stark Varg, which also has a top speed of around 90 miles per hour, but can get there in a fraction of the time compared to a 450. With no gears or clutch to worry about, it gets to its top speed fast. Like even just in this clip from Suronster, you can see just how quickly it gets to its top speed. And this is with him going easy on the throttle at the start. Now let's check out the torque figures, which is where the e-bike should be up there at the top of the charts. The Honda 125 has around 100 newton meters of torque, which is pretty good for a beginner bike. The Tudio sadly doesn't have any openly available torque ratings, but we'll put it at around 150 newton meters. Newton meters is just a measure of torque, by the way, if you were wondering. The Talaria XXX has a sizable increase at just over 230 newton meters, and the Honda 250 makes a respectable 240 in first gear. The Honda 450, however, makes 400 newton meters, which sounds great until you compare it to the Stark Vargs. The Varg, otherwise known as the goat of torque, has just over 900 newton meters, which is just insane. Now let's talk price to performance. With the specs in mind, the Stark Varg comes out as the best. However, realistically no one has $16K to drop on an electric dirt bike. If you do, it's a great bike. If not, the Talaria XXX at $3,500 may be a better option, especially if you're a beginner. The best budget beginner bike here is the Tudio at only $1,400. It's well made and quick enough for most younger riders at the start of their riding journey. However, if you've been riding a smaller gas bike for a while now, or you can ride pretty well on pretty much every surface, or maybe you're just outgrowing your old bike, then a 250 would be a great upgrade. It's fast, maneuverable, and lightweight enough to where if you drop it, it's not too difficult to pick it back up. The 125 is a great beginner bike if you're into gas or you like going on longer rides. The Stark Varg and 450 are pretty much for intermediate to professional riders, although the Stark Varg, you can adjust the horsepower in its settings. It's still a lot of power for beginners, even in the lowest power levels. Now about the range. The electric bikes have very little range compared to gas bikes. The Talaria XXX has around 25 miles of range, which is normally good enough for trail riding, but can be limiting for longer rides. The Tudio gets around 30 miles of range with normal riding, and the Stark Varg gets around 33 miles of range, even riding hard out on the moto track. Whereas gas bikes like the Honda 450 get 30 to 40 miles. The 250 gets around 60 miles on a full tank of gas, whereas a bike like the 125 can get as much as 125 miles on a tank of gas. But it's more likely to get around 70 miles with normal riding. So for a lot of people, gas bikes are going to be better. But other than torque, electric does have one other advantage over gas, and that's the amount of stuff you can get away with. Take this for example. There's a dirt bike going past your house back and forth making all sorts of loud noises. It's a cool noise, yeah, but at some point you're likely going to get sick of it. Whereas with an e-bike, you wouldn't even know it's there unless you saw it. Which does lead to another issue, being that if no one can tell you're there and you decide to ride it on the road, it sadly increases your chances of being hit either by a distracted driver or even just one that didn't notice you. Whereas if you're riding a dirt bike with that engine revving, it's hard for people not to notice you. E-bikes are in a sort of gray area, where you might not get in trouble, but if your local cops are bored enough, you very well could. But if a cop sees you zooming around on a 450, you're just screwed. You might be wondering about the maintenance. If you're not really mechanical, then an e-bike may surprisingly not be for you because there's not many e-bike shops around. But if you're willing to learn a bit, like I'm sure most of you are, then an e-bike is a great choice. All you need to do is change the battery, lube the chain, change the brake pads, and bleed the brakes. The hardest of those is bleeding the brakes, but even then, I just watched a few videos videos and I was able to do it fine. I'll link pretty much everything I talk about in the description, by the way, if you're wondering about anything. With gas bikes, in my opinion, they're more fun to work on, but that's probably because my dad has taught me a lot. If you don't have someone who taught you, it can be a very bad experience. But if you're willing to watch some tutorials, engines aren't as complicated as a lot of people think. Or you don't even need to know, because for places like Honda, they have service centers all over the place where you can just get it fixed. But then there are upgrades. For gas bikes, you have the classics like new fairings, better clutch, better brakes, and better suspension. But with e-bikes, there's a lot you can upgrade. There's the gearing, the battery, controller, suspension, wires, wheels, even the motor. In fact, a bike like the Talario XXX, you can upgrade it to the point where it goes 80 miles an hour, which is pretty much the max you would want to go on a bike of that size. Then with the Tudio, you can get that to get to a top speed much quicker just by upgrading to a 72 volt battery. However, to get a higher top speed, you also need a new controller since it limits your top speed on the factory model. Or with the Talario, you can get it to go 80 with just a battery and a controller. The Stark Varg, however, doesn't really have any upgrades because it's already top of the line. I'm personally coming from a Honda 80cc dirt bike, but after doing all the research for this video, I've pretty much decided on getting some type of 254 stroke as my next bike because I've far outgrown my 80. I hope this video helped you come to a decision for yourself and that you liked it. If you did, leave a like, it helps out a lot. See you in the next one.